experience living in
Since New Year's.
Were you in?
Before this, I was an intern.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Who's the kind of Korean?
Reinstate.
They're at the State Department too.
Oh, so
I don't know.
2016.
Yeah.
I was a journalist at WTOP News. On the radio station here in DC.
It's quite up.
Job opened up.
Well, they made a cheap version. They started
like a
making.
movie.
Oh no, like a Disney show after cartoon syndicated.
Being present for all these things.
I was like a big reporter for a year.
Yeah, that would have been
I
80s.
was just like a very
Early 80s, early to mid 80s.
I still have my job.
So Wikipedia, what maybe you can mention if it's
I've heard that the problem that I have with my editors are like national news speakers and reporters are just like the problem with the
gender.
Yeah. Most editors would probably say they have the same problem.
Changing them so that they're wrong and don't make sense.
Oh, a classic. A classic. Checking your copy.
That was Get Smart. That was way ahead of its time. So the people who were writing that were like some of the people who went on a decade later to be writers for like Saturday Night Live or came on there. Yeah. And Bob Henry, so he wrote the Graduate. Yeah, and was Mel Brooks was involved in
Yeah,
the Get Smart one?
yeah, the executive shipping away from
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it would.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? It feels like when you arrive at National now, you come out the one way. You have to go through like 4 sets of closing doors, or all in a row, and that's all I can think of. Go through there is Get Smart.
And luckily all of the stuff is digital, so I can go back and say, like,
Missed me by that much.
yeah,
Do you hear the
Yes. Japan is at 10 years.
So
I
far.
can't forget. And I did that too.
All good?
Yeah.
Good one.
Probably.
What's that?
It's about, yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
It's kind of gone through. There's no traffic on it.
Yeah, but then my dog is really going to be in trouble.
So you're ready to talk.
Right, I was
You
hoping.
go right now.
Only if they could take her and it'd still be tight.
That's
But it's right by our house. This is right by our house. So you got run over, grab her, take her there.
Can't hear you, your phone's breaking.
Oh, tight, but I can run.
yeah.
But
Did you get the emails from readers? That's
not quite. Wouldn't that be great?
Just getting that nonsensical stream that somebody who's got with the world in general.
Here's $1 for the bus.
Okay.
My sister lives in Charlottesville, and her good friends have an eagle.
Yeah.
And she'll just go missing for 3 or 4 days, and people on the other side of town will say, oh yeah, I saw her yesterday. And she comes back home, nobody seems to mind. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ours would get run over too, so.
Cheers.
They took my audio
Just hang out on Facebook all day, all day.
Right. That if she would have to be close to
Yeah,
Wi-Fi.
yeah.
So you have to just be close to someone who can compromise.
Okay.
So,
Right.
my dog
Does somebody make like a silicone
an article.
Yeah,
holder
like,
that
well,
you put the,
officially confirmed.
and you put the tag
And
in
my
there?
headline was, it's official.
I mean, the cost of that is,
Yeah, right, right.
Okay. 90 Oh, yeah, that's okay. Huge issue.
These guys are coming up with TV shows. I don't remember Space
Such
19 like
remarkable
that.
email.
How would that
Huge issue with the.
Ironically,
it's
79
official,
maybe?
Just like that.
I was still pretty little then.
See, I knew if I walked over here and said that, you were gonna.
I'm not, no, I'm not trying to. I just turned 50 this year, so like, the earliest space show that I would have watched would have been like the original Battlestar Galactica, which would have been like 79, 80.
You need to go back to school, and that's official Unity. And he's like, I don't know.
Space 1999, I remember one, I think it was good, it was good, it was just like, it was just a lot.
That was like, that was remarkable, because it was such an inane group, just like, it was the angriest,
It's available on some,
and honestly,
one of the streamers or.
email I'd gotten, usually when people were almost incoherent. That one was like, structure, I'd give him credit.
Yes, that
He
I,
did not
so
go for
my
any
sisters are a little
things.
older, and my sisters had a huge crush
And
on
anytime,
Randolph
so anytime I
Bands.
saw that
And
person.
so they would watch that, and I would watch it. I was mentioning that earlier because if you go and watch it now,
Be very careful.
it's terrible, it's
You.
slow
He does not like.
and it also it ends up looking like a corporate like instructional video, like how to set a broken phone. Yeah, and there's no blood ever.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I had another one here where someone said that I did.
To emergency.
It was on the border of Maryland, and on one side it was like
Do emergency.
Reynolds Street as a and they
Remember SWAT?
SWAT, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Five paragraphs about how
Oh yeah.
like I was and before you finish reading,
But I wouldn't have known that from my youth. So a few years ago, we didn't have cable for a while, but we were getting
So I get a
like
second.
all these little
sorry.
HD channels in between the channels. Exactly. So I started watching that stuff. It's hard.
Five paragraphs.
And I was like, Rocket Files. Quincy was fun. It was effective.
Best I get is
Yes.
Jack Klugman is awesome.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we gotta worry about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Because Jack Klugman was like on all these Twilight Zone episodes.
It's 60 amount on Facebook. But I think like people who are retired just don't know.
I just have a question. Do we need to leave this locked here?
This is your camera here.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things about watching those old shows is they're all these
Yeah.
famous actors today were bit players on.
Yeah, so the
on all those
photographers
shows.
need egress through here. So I'm actually not sure about that camera there. That is.
Okay, so in the future, we'll just.
Yeah, that would probably. Yeah.
And only on this side we can set up, right?
This is the only shotway position here.
No, I was born in 74, so.
Alright, so I have actually got to ask my colleagues about this position here.
Sorry, they were moving at the last minute.
Okay.
Tri-state.
Let me send a picture of where this is.
Yeah, whatever.
I'll just check for you.
Yeah, like I said, it was the last minute.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're pretty crowded over here, so.
No, you might be all right. I can hug this, you know, make sure people can get by.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to, I could go up high.
Put a mirror there.
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
Oh, sorry, Mike. No, not at all, not at all.
I think you should go into, like, go to GW.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the
Be
CP.
professor Joe.
Exactly.
I think, what do you think?
It's still printing now.
Happier, so did you have to file for Medicare? How's it going?
Yeah,
made the mistake of thinking it was extra. And then
You
I
actually
decided,
didn't read it.
but I still, you
You
have
have
to
to
register.
file.
So you still have to register anyway?
Yeah. Every month you got a 6-month limit.
You definitely want to, or else it bounces.
But also they have a small agency, but the penalty filing is forever. So it's 3 months before your birthday and 3 months.
Very
So I went into the so now I'm paying for that. And
So.
I got it, well,
Oh, yeah. Another one I did wrong. Even a TV show like that.
I haven't fixed it. Because
That was
I
You just put what?
didn't need it.
Yeah. That way, and I put it in here.
I'll just wait till you do that.
When there's
But I did get,
Is that, was his chest, what was his chest being, was that what was?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, it's pricey, but it's best. Yeah, whenever you walk into an office,
You know what I'm talking about?
you're paying one.
Panel, like, nobody
I know, but I.
What?
They will for 2 years.
Thanks for sharing with the class.
Yeah, do you have any more information on that, folks?
Well,
Will there be guidance coming out?
Yes, I'll give you the 2-minute warning. I was gonna say something, but
Alright, you are
that's
all
okay.
set there, you could make sure, the 2 things are make sure all the tables face down, and if you move that, the length a little more, so.
This way?
Yeah, just a, well, there's a little more egress here.
Get out of it, get out of it.
Yeah.
and $20.
40.
Oh, now we're going 40? I'm right.
You can go 60 and split it.
They're going higher these days, you know?
Yeah, you know, inflation.
Brian, this isn't on yet, correct?
No.
Okay, alright. I think he will wait. Like when we get 2 minutes, when we get a
12. Yeah.
when we get a 2-minute warning.
Brian, how'd you get it on your first? They'll send you another on your first.
$60.
To the desk.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, they'll send the other person here. Oh, that'll be. I was, honestly. I was working from home at the beginning of COVID. So this is a lot, you know.
What are the
I
odds?
just watched it.
For what it's worth, I didn't see the notice that this was rescheduled, so like, I paid $20 for the extra fast list.
Or more.
At like 10:30 or something, I'm like, yeah, 15 minutes, I can just cut the clock.
You're staying here now.
Sorry to hear.
So yeah, it was 11:40. She goes
No,
down.
that's Ollie.
Ollie, okay.
I know you get it.
Yeah, I do, you do get, I get mixed up all the time, don't you see it, Murray? I just.
No, I'm fighting you.
Oh, you're, okay. I'll,
Until.
oh, yeah, you,
Came to my
yeah,
house.
yeah. That's a great area. I love that area.
It's a small, it's kind of really good. Except for garage.
Yeah. Is there a deli there called Wagshaw? How is that? It looks like.
It really
Is it the one where the character fell down the elevator shaft?
Yes.
Was it LA Bowl?
Yeah. Very famously, they got rid of, it was a very mean character, and like out of nowhere.
She just fell down the elevator.
Yeah,
She
that's how they
opened,
got
she
rid of
opened
her.
up the elevator and the clock went off.
Yeah, there are two of them standing there. She's standing there with someone else waiting for the elevator. And the door's open and she just goes to walk on. He's looking the other way. He still chatting, facing into the office. And she goes to step onto the elevator and
Was
screams.
she in a contract dispute?
So, it might have been one of those.
David McKellar was the writer of that, right?
Oh, is that right?
I think so. I think that was one of his early shows.
Really?
Yeah, it looks like it.
I wouldn't have guessed that I thought that he was big into like Ally McBeal and those.
I think he was a writer, and then he was
Is that right?
like a staff writer, and then he was
Sure,
a
sure.
showrunner.
That was okay.
Harrison.
Yeah, I had to,
Many.
Nash gave my stage.
I have,
Hello?
yeah, I have it on me.
Filter issues?
Yeah.
How expensive that was to do.
The stupid interior.
Versus now, it's just like.
I think it was just a gimmick.
It's got a long one.
Her biological
Yeah, I'm
father.
gonna go to.
There's a whole debate over whether it's actually a show or not.
Probably start the wagering on how late she's gonna be.
No, maybe it's right.
Of course. I was
You're saying 12:20. You are optimistic, sir. Come on.
Well, so they did a remake movie.
What they should do is we'll
So
have
that was on
any
Friday
bad
nights, and I
clocks
was
will
allowed
be
to watch
uploaded.
that.
It's somebody's job
What
to
came on
continue to
after,
make it
which
later
was
and later
Dallas.
and later and later.
I was only allowed to watch the opening credits
Yeah.
and the songs for Dallas.
The song?
Gabe will come by. He works out of the gym beside where I live. Yeah, we'll see him. He's good. Yeah, he spends a lot of time down in Mounts Beach House.
So I was riding
Probably
on the
not.
subway
They would have to change it considerably.
They can't do the car.
Well, they could,
Did you see it? I was
they
like,
could
yeah.
completely redo it without that. They could redo it with like a diverse cast or something without like
Oh, okay.
Optimistic.
standardized.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
know.
the way they do it.
It's like it's a very Taika Waititi.
No, MASH has been early 70s. It was probably like 75 to 83, something like that. The Grand War. At the time it went off the air, it was the longest running show.
I don't remember this, but it's like I was the one.
The finale was the most watched show in American
All of
history.
you around the Comic-Con.
It probably, yeah, like,
They just let you outside. and
they
watch
do that like
all of
share
it.
of TV just to have it on.
Right.
It was like
So they totally started building it.
Lunch, Brian.
Oh, that would have been Zeros. Yeah, that was 60s.
Yeah,
Late
somebody
60s,
from that
early
show
70s.
just died.
Was that at the airport?
The,
Or one of
the,
those
oh, no.
hotels? I don't remember, I just remember seeing reruns.
There was a French character on the show, and he actually had been in the French resistance. And the Germans
Yeah,
who were in the
technically
show
they
would only agree to be in it if they were made fun of, if it wasn't taken seriously. They didn't want to ever have the Nazis taken seriously in the show. So it was, the only things they would play with were strict comedy.
Well, that was based on a movie.
Sergeant Schultz.
Correct, yeah, so I've got a mic on, it's not turned on. And I've got my.
I mean installed.
Is that right?
Yeah.
There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
character?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean stolen.
Right.
And the colonel gets hot.
So that's just something for you guys to figure out, but I'll.
Yeah, they had reruns in New Zealand.
Well, Gilbert Gottfried on that.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Can you imagine
Damn, that door
a
opens.
comedy of a German prisoner of war
Oh,
camp?
we don't have visual displays? Oh, snap. It's posted there.
Okay, then that's
Visual,
fine.
visual, visual.
Oh, I love that. Perfect, okay, yeah, and I'm in the room.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Another one I didn't know.
That was Saturday night. It was on after Love Boat. That's like
Fantasy
Fantasy
Night.
Night. That definitely was not one.
It's gonna be
Really?
silent.
Love Boat was grand.
The green pro-democracy silent.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Right now. Honestly, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I just have to.
Go all in. Going hard on
Yeah,
it.
it was the crew were the stars of the show, but each episode
There he
was
is.
completely different.
We get started now.
Like 3 or 4 feature couples who were on the cruise.
I think
Why
we'll
do
probably
you
keep
not?
it
Where there was a
20 minutes
married couple
minimum.
who were trying to
Wow.
be
That's generous.
What's that?
That's generous.
Yeah.
ex-husband and ex-wife who were on the boat and their new
20 minutes we start speculating when it's gonna start.
and every episode there was some really like famous actors.
I know, they should surprise
They were
them.
1950s TV movies. They were very famous. Oh yeah, Carmen, it's her Princess Crusoe. Everybody in Hollywood.
We didn't get a 2-minute warning. Oh no, we did get a 2-minute warning. But everybody was sitting down. I was the only one standing up there.
Charlie was on for the impression of in the 1970s Latina icon. Here was her catchphrase. Yes, but there was a dance move that like oh, I hope these mics are all on.
No weird happened. No, delete it. Delete it.
Probably, yeah. Whatever the port in Los Angeles is. Yeah, they're always going to Acapulco. That's Mazatlan.
Everybody thinks it's Japanese, though. There must be some Japanese.
There is.
The ship's doctor, who was the lady's son, was actually the evil genius on
Yawning is cool.
Get Smart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Drop off. See you.
I love how.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Somebody fucking made me see it. Years later. 45.
This one is too. I'd rather. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex. What did you get? Alex.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Usually I just call them songs.
Oh, I didn't know it was for Alex. No.
I know, right?
So after she's back.
I know.
Well, he is a handsome guy.
Yeah, that's true.
Allie, I think he was from here. Yeah, on that step.
I gotta show him that.
You should.
So on that step.
This is fine for when Megan talks.
Exactly.
We didn't put her to say I have to do it right now.
Now she's 90210?
That was not Kelly. Shannon had the long dark hair.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember her name.
Oh,
Maybe
well,
Juan?
Jenny Garth.
Jenny
Jenny
Garth.
Garth. That's, yeah. Yeah, she's gorgeous.
What's that?
I tried to watch that. Did you see the thing? It was sort of like a reality movie. Like I watched that episode.
Unclear.
Yeah, I'm not far.
It's a strong photo of the song.
Yeah, just be like, yeah, really again. You can definitely sure.
And it walks up, fucks up the walk-up photo.
We'll all be fucked up.
Well, the woman that played Donna, like, I get the impression that like, she has kids in that the show's going on in her life. So it's like that show is sort of,
Try not to.
Which one is that?
She's not, like, in the center. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right, yes.
whose dad was a producer.
He produced everything, all those ones I'm talking about. Love Bug. Charlie's Angels. Insurance Company. Produced every one. Probably Dynasty and all of those shows.
Charles Fox composed all the scores.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah, remember? He was the one who composed all the scores to those shows to
I didn't know.
get title. He made lots of money that way.
You're not gonna leave your house this weekend, are you?
Man, those shows, they feel
You guys seen the new Top Gun?
Yes.
Did they say?
I need to watch
I
it.
loved it.
I think it's pretty good.
It was good. Good closure.
Well, I just like the way they filmed it.
Wait, I didn't even know.
Cameras are.
I'm thinking I should like watch the old ones. But it's like, I'm sure you don't have to go.
Regardless, I'll be free.
The old one is.
I'll keep an eye on you.
I've seen the old enough to have to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it so many times.
I think I could probably slide right into the room.
Is it the same characters? The older people now?
Most of them are not in it.
So Tom Cruise is like a captain now?
Actually, he's joined the Russians.
But he's still
Going on
around.
bombing runs over Kiev.
Like, ooh.
That's what would be.
Yeah.
It's been a very civilized man. No, like, Friday at 10 p.m., like, candidates, you know. So
He's still there?
Goose is still dead, but Goose is so bad.
Oh, you got me.
It's just like, yeah, rarely do we see this there.
Yeah, he was in one of those sides.
Yeah.
I won't say anything. I won't say anything. I can keep that to myself.
But there's a new girl.
She was in ER.
Yeah, he was on the original cast. Dr. Green.
Yeah.
He was off for like 4 weeks.
I think before that, though, it's like the Trump administration. Remember that?
He's not there.
Are we pushing it back again? Or just no
No,
problem?
I think they
Nope.
yeah.
She's gonna hold it then.
Is it a big check with my name on it?
That's a skill. That's a real skill.
That's on the road, it's too late.
Yeah.
Bonnie said she's on it.
Almost like she worked Saturday and Sunday. We don't need it.
That's my exact.
We're having, so I'm hoping it's several of us.
5,
are
6 o'clock
depending
tonight.
on our warrant.
In this room.
So,
Well, that'd be cool.
That's when the press
yeah,
conference.
if you just like
Exactly.
That is incredibly likely.
facing it,
That, really bad movie about.
yeah, if you get.
So they're having a vote.
Not a good idea.
Their thought is,
then they have to pass the rule, and they have to pass a debate rule, and they have to go to the floor with the bill and pass the bill. Chad.
Bill, I say why not? Why not? First of all,
Chad,
it's
I thought you were
Friday.
sideline reporter.
he is
Will Ferrell.
sidelines of Congress.
And if you got banished from these, really, would that be a loss? Just make Tom do it from now on.
There's an off and an on. You see off and on.
Yeah, oh, here, oh, you know, I was doing this thing down here, I'm sorry, it was that one, okay, got it. I thought you were, sorry.
This bone is.
Going down. Did I show you the stairs that are going? Took me a long time to teach that.
Yeah, you have to see it at the right time. You wouldn't get it. You'll get it.
So,
You got a bonus for words? How old is she now?
well,
She's still a little
That'd
late.
be funny, yeah.
yeah, it's
Till
really
that's
hard.
over time. Right there.
Keep talking, Mitch.
Probably like 50.
Almost got it over.
He got the dog when he was older.
Yeah, they know it's a lot of.
All the lights in the same one, but I think if I'm making a dog, I want to do it.
What you say is that extra sugar at the top.
Super dirty.
How's that working with John Land these days? My mom watches The Daily Show. She saw that video.
I mean, that'd be a shot, a lot quicker.
I just did a white balance off your back.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was good for something.
That's great, thank you.
I did not go. I wasn't. Rainy.
Those were some ominous clouds.
Did you guys air it?
Yeah, Fox Sports, they're alive.
The game.
I think they aired it, I know,
ESPN does that.
C-SPAN did, you know, it was back in the mid-nineties. I begged Brian, the founder, I said, just shoot the game like you would anything else, you do flying, the infield fly rule is, explain, these little graphics. And he just, I love Brian, he's not a huge sports guy, he just what it is. And now they do it, put it on like Armed Forces Radio. This was like 04 or 05. Because I remember for a radio story I was doing, I got some of the tape to put into my story.
Last year it was later in the summer,
It
it was
was
like September.
end of September because of the pandemic, and of course, it was right before the fiscal year. And I think it's the late, because it usually it's June or,
Oh,
I think even May.
Mm. It's beautiful evening last year.
Again,
Late
never
September,
run
here.
Or the wall, or the wall.
Do you remember when was the Republicans won again?
One of them.
In like 2021, I think the Republicans won.
They won the last two. I remember going with Louis Baseball Park, the first year they played there, in '95, which the park was brand new. Congressman Steve Largent, Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Seahawks, was the pitcher for the Republicans. He was striking out everything. He was a pro football player. He
They
was
were typical
amazing.
all
Mel
American
Watt was
fans,
a Democrat
so maybe.
pitcher. He was not bad.
Well, no, I just,
But
I
Largent
just
was
thought that it was so bad.
It's all the losses.
No.
And then, Stubby's new, right? He's new as of 20.
couple of years ago.
Yeah. And to see him like losing. I wonder how.
They let, Bunning was in Congress,
Yeah.
they let him pitch.
I didn't know that.
They said his arm was completely shot. Literally, he couldn't throw the ball 30
I'm
feet.
trying to remember, was this?
Bunning, Jim Bunning, Hall of Fame, Congressman and Senator.
Senator.
Yes.
Only player to ever throw a no-hitter in both leagues.
Is that right?
Tigers.
No, this
He
guy
wasn't allowed to, walk,
He literally, I was told,
he physically.
I was told he physically cannot throw a baseball. He couldn't get it from here to you.
I mean, they used to run pitchers a lot different.
Yeah, oh, yeah, very good.
You know who I thought was a good athlete, but because he played.
Yeah, now that,
Watts.
I
But,
don't know.
and he was a captain for the Republicans, but he was not that, actually, he was good at baseball. He played college at Oklahoma, played in the CFL.
So now that.
Bunning was playing for like bullpen.
I remember the very first pitch of the '94 game when they used to play a 4-mile run. Congressman Sherrod Brown hit like a number of the end. Playing first base with Sarbanes-Oxley. Terrible collision at first base. Oxley breaks his hand.
Yeah, they just really second.
Taken to hospital, emergency surgery. His very first play. Too high. Yeah, he played. And one of the Republicans also had Gonzalez. He played, for the Buckeyes, and played for the Colts and somebody else. He played a little bit. Best known for his bobsled, right? He was a bobsledder in '94. 92 games in Albertville or 94 He was called.
There's a member versus
Yeah.
Oh, Davis and,
Flag football, right? Yeah, they do it.
Dunn.
And there's a hockey game too.
And the basketball game.
No, we lost.
The hockey game. Well, they play usually Capital One.
In their press.
Well, the number is like back in the 30s. He played.
Do that again.
You guys choose,
Somehow.
I'm not sure how he is.
Yeah, but it was 20.
Yeah,
Captain usually adds all.
Carry it.
The whole thing is on the chart. So, quite unlike.
Jake, I want to say the ESPN thing. Remember when they had the ESPN zone, the sports card?
Yeah, but it was after that.
Was it?
Yeah, because that was close, but it was good, like.
Because I remember some connection with that when they opened it.
Yes,
It's my relation to the city. I'm just tickled to heck.
See what's happening there?
Of course. Covered every year.
When do I say? I post a picture of this.
Yeah, I saw it, but here's what you do. Look at the city, the towns are all built around water. If there was a creek at the bottom of the hill, that's where they built it up.
Okay, this is the A section. Me too.
Did you come transfer?
Doctor.
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Well, now it can start.
Trying to make sure to get James on.
Aim high. Shoot low. Yeah, right.
We've got about 2 minutes, everybody.
About.
Stand
Could be
up.
less than that. That means 1:30.
Great fire drill, guys.
Chad, don't will listen to me, please.
Sure, he went to go get tested.
Change my last name. Hi, Chris.
Here we go.
Yeah, what she told me.
Okay. Fine, stand high. Thank you.
You should.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are on a Friday morning, such an action-packed week. We're very excited that yesterday we had a 60-vote margin in victory for the CHIPS bill. We had 100% voting from the Democratic side, and once we got to 218, a large number of Republicans voting as well, which was encouraging because we always worked on this as a bipartisan bill. At least six of the bills in the package were Republican bills. Many of the others are bipartisan. It's very exciting. It's going to be transformative in terms of how it enables America to reassert itself as preeminent in the world. It's called the CHIPS and Science Act, and I'm very pleased with that because maybe more than a week or 10 days ago, it was just the CHIPS bill, and we're having a, shall we say, encouraging for it to go beyond chips, because chips are very important. Semiconductors, very important, but it's about the here and now as we go forward in the near future. The science part is about the future, and science, research, education, expanding the diversity and inclusion of many more people making scientific decisions and learning about it and teaching us about it, as well as doing so in every corner of the country. You know what it does? It lowers costs for consumers. It creates 100,000 good-paying union jobs, reduces U.S. dependence on foreign manufacture as it brings chips manufacturing home, as Steny always says, make it in America, which is a national security priority as well as an economic necessity, turbocharges American innovation, really powering our preeminence on both research and next-generation technologies. I want to salute Eddie Bernice Johnson, the chair of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. She got much of, not all, but a good deal of her bill's bipartisan legislation into the package, and Frank Pallone doing the CHIPS piece of this in a very effective way, and as well as 100,000 prevailing wage jobs, Bobby Scott, Richie Neal. I could go on and on about all of the members of our chairs who played such an important role, and all of our members who did so as well. And I just want to tell you a couple more things about it. It ensures that CHIPS funding comes with strong guardrails against corporate profiteering. It secures provisions to diversify the innovation workforce so our best minds can power our technologies of the future, and including in our legislation to drive decades of discovery with important money, strong investments, National Science Foundation, office at the Department of Energy, and NIST. And now I enrolled it outside in front of, with the backdrop of the Washington Monument, our tribute to our founders who were committed to the future. That's what this legislation honors, and we send it on to the president. That's pretty exciting for us. We had, I'm excited today because for a long time now I have wanted to reinstate the assault weapon ban. You weren't here, maybe you weren't even born when we did this in the 90s. It was hard, but it happened, and it saved lives. And I'm looking forward to having a good, the passage of it this afternoon. When I talk about it on the floor this afternoon, I'm going to show a presentation of what some totally irresponsible people are putting out there about little children, toddlers, learning how to use an assault weapon, smaller assault weapons, but a gun like mommy and daddy. Small assault weapons, but getting their muscles ready to be able to use it. Is that sick? Anyway, we're hopeful that on our vote on the assault weapon ban and the outcry for it in the country, I think the best, most important thing to do is to have background checks. That probably saves the most lives on the ongoing, but a very with that, very important as to eliminate the to reinstate. We like to say reinstate because we did pass this before, and it did save lives. We take an oath of office to protect and defend our Constitution, the American people, making our community safe. Our Democrats are committed to having strong support for our law enforcement and our first responders. I'm so proud to announce that as of late last night, we've come to terms in terms of how we support our law enforcement and do so with accountability. I have to pay tribute to Joyce Beatty, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, to Josh Gottheimer, who really has been a leader on this issue, and Abigail Spanberger. She had a bill too, and they found a way to do what we want, to support our men and women in uniform, but to also do so with accountability. Since we talked about a security package, though, we've been flooded with so many bills that people have, so we need to, shall we say, we have to have the bandwidth to deal with all of them, and hopefully, not hopefully, we plan to bring those support for our men and women in law enforcement with accountability to the floor in the second week of August when we come back. That is what I think will conform to when the Senate may be ready to send us the very important legislation whose title is Inflation Reduction Act. So we're very excited about the fact that we have a breakthrough there. It isn't everything we want. How many times have I said that? You cannot judge something for what it doesn't do, but respect it for what it does. And what this does do is quite remarkable in terms of our investment in protecting the planet. It lowers, in addition to which, it lowers healthcare costs with the subsidies that are extended for 3 years in the bill, as well as to have, for the first time, historic opportunity for the Secretary of HHS to negotiate for lower prescription drug prices. The cost of prescription drugs is the kitchen table issue in our country, and this legislation will reduce that cost, but also give people hope. And part of our lower cost, we're always saying, safer communities, lower cost. Again, we'll bring this legislation to the floor, the public safety bills, but at the time when we have the legislation coming over from the Senate. In that inflation reduction package, you know what it is: lowers cost of health care for millions, slashes prescription drug prices, historic action to combat the climate crisis, and lowers energy costs and advances energy security. Again, it does what we want to do to fight inflation by lowering costs. It's fully paid for, and no new taxes, as President Biden has said, for families making under $400,000 a year. I talked with a great enthusiasm and excitement about the advancement we're making in preparing legislation, passing legislation, and the rest. As we speak here right now on the floor, we're addressing drought and fires. And as a Californian, as a Westerner, this is very, very important legislation for everyone in our country, but in particular, we benefited from the intellectual resource that our Western members are on this. But we had a sad thing happen, and that was when the Senate failed to pass the PACT Act. How do you explain how 80% of the Republicans in the United States Senate said no to our veterans? Every time we're acting, and last week I had my regular meeting with the veteran service organizations, and I always promise them, and we try to honor that promise by acting always in a bipartisan way, so they don't have to get involved in one decision or another. We have our differences of opinion as to allocation of resources, but to do so in the most bipartisan way. And the PACT Act is a very bipartisan bill. 80-some senators voted for it the first time it came on the floor there. That they would vote against that when people are waiting, people are dying, people are sick because they were exposed to these burn pits, huge burn pits. If you don't know about them, read about them because they're deadly. In addition to which, if you lived in North Carolina or served at Camp Lejeune, anyone in your family, you will know that the water there is deadly. And not only for the service member, but for their families who may live there with them. And that is covered in this legislation. So for them to say, well, we're not going to vote for it because you've come to an agreement on the reconciliation, as they were calling it, is so ridiculous. Wait a minute. You're not going to help our veterans because we want to lower the cost of prescription drugs, because we want to lower the cost of health care, because we want to protect the planet. Of course, you don't agree with any of those things, but would you use that to vote against our veterans? It's really immoral, almost criminal, because these people were exposed, and I've been on this issue since Agent Orange for a long time. And the sooner that we can do this, the healthier our veterans will be. As I said yesterday at our rally, when in the military we say on the battlefield we leave no soldier behind, and when they come home, we leave no veteran behind. But the Republicans in the Senate did just that by 80% of them voting no. Isn't that unbelievable? And actually, when the bill passed in the Senate the first time, it had 84 votes. Anyway. People over politics, you know, our Democratic Communications and Policy, Democratic Policy and Communications Committee put forth our agenda, our For the People agenda, People Over Politics. We're very excited about that. It too has three things: that lower cost, again, safer communities, and better jobs, and that's what we are about. In any event, it's a comparison to what the Republicans are doing. In contrast, the MAGA Republicans are criminalizing women's health care, planning to end Social Security and Medicare. Don't take it from me. Read their stuff. Attacking democracy, undermining the right to vote. So we think we have a clear contrast in terms of why we are here, what our why is, and how we go forward. Any questions? Okay. Since we talked baseball last night.
We talked baseball last night, we'll talk policy and legislation.
Okay, I'm with you.
So on this reconciliation package, it seems as though, you know, you have a push to try to get something done before August here. There might be problems getting this through the Senate. Do you feel like some of your members might say, here we are, we're on the hook again, if they can't get this through the Senate, even though Senator Manchin is on board, but there's other issues there, and also just having the numbers to pass the bill for COVID, and how does that translate to winning in November?
So you want to talk politics?
Well, but
yeah.
Obviously...
Well, let me just say, our purpose is to meet the needs of the American people. You have to talk to the Senate about the dynamic over there in regard to this bill. It is, shall we say, not everything that I want. I mean, not even close, not even half. But nonetheless, what is in there is very good. Historic. First time HHS secretary can negotiate for lower prescription drug prices. Not as big as I would like, but it's in the door. Historic. In terms of not the three-year extension of the subsidies, the Affordable Care Act, is strengthening the Affordable Care Act. Fabulous. And, by the way, I want it more. That is to say, I wanted the Medicaid piece and the rest of that. But that doesn't mean that we don't support the bill. But probably the biggest difference, although those are substantial for kitchen table issues, is what it does in terms of climate. You may recall that when I was speaker the first time, climate was my flagship issue, and we established a committee, we passed legislation, all of that. So this is of the highest importance because it's about the children, it's about the future. It is a short fuse that we are on. The thermal management of the planet is greatly at risk. The rising sea levels, the encroachment of deserts, so many things that are happening in communities that they have to move. So it's a health issue, clean air, clean water. It's a economic issue, preeminence in the green technologies in the world. It's a security issue because the encroachment, all of these impacts of the climate crisis cause competition and conflict over resources and habitat, and the national security people come into us and say this is a security issue, and of course it's a values issue. So this for us, when I learned of what was in there, was just transformational. We've never spent this much money, even as much as we had originally. We've never invested this much in such an important way, in a public-private way, to have the private sector play its role in this so we get more advantage than is just right there. So it is, it's beautiful to behold, and I feel pretty confident.
But do you think that your strength is bringing people along again? If they start, you said you can't worry about the Senate. The Senate's going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah, and when they send it to us, we'll pass it.
But you're confident that's going to happen?
Yeah.
They're going to get it?
Yeah. Jake? Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking, on the police funding bill, I realize that Democrats can now say that we actually fund the police, but being that this will be contingent upon certain accountability measures, are we talking about consent decrees? Are we talking about DEI measures or anti-bias training? Can't the Republicans just turn around and say, hey, you're only going to get your funding over these police departments if you go by what the Democrats want you to actually go by, such as their policy agendas? That's not real police funding. That's by saying, you do this.
No, it's real
and you'll
police
get your
funding. It's police funding with accountability. It's police funding with accountability. We feel very proud of the compromises that were made, and with much discussion on the other side of the aisle and people outside. So that's what I have to say about that. Jake?
Are you confident you'll get the assault weapons ban through today?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Next.
You've repeatedly said that you want Republicans to take back their party. You said in
Yeah.
May, quote, "Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican
Yes.
party, not a cold." How does that square with your party now spending money to boost election-denying candidates in Republican primaries, including against House Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump?
I said that we need a strong Republican Party, not a cult of personality. That didn't mean we shouldn't have a strong Democratic Party as well. And the political decisions that are made out there are made in furtherance of our winning the election, because we think the contrast between Democrats and Republicans as they are now is so drastic that we have to win. And I feel confident win. I just see, what's that called? The 6 points, 44 to, what's it called, the poll? George has it? Yeah. Well, anyway, the most recent poll that came out has us 44 to 38. This whole thing has changed. But make no mistake, I've said to you, we have every intention of winning this election. As people make judgments in campaigns around the country, that's that. But it has nothing to do with whether we should have a strong, grand old party, which has done great things for our country. Yes.
Just really quickly, I know you don't want to talk about your travel, but can you at least talk about the significance of visiting Asia? What type of message you and a congressional delegation would want to send if you, in fact, make this trip?
Well, I don't ever talk about my travel because, as some of you know, it's a security issue. It's a security issue for every member of Congress traveling, especially abroad. But for the Speaker, it is an additional security issue, and for those traveling with me, not just members, but staff, etc. The president earlier in his term, talked about a strong emphasis on the Asian Pacific. He has visited there, the Vice President's visited there, the Secretary of Commerce and others, and we want the Congress of the United States to be part of that initiative. Of course, as a West Coast person, we see the Pacific as that's our home. We're part of that as well. That is not to diminish the importance of our transatlantic relationships as well. But I'm very excited should we go to the countries that you'll be hearing about along the way about how the conversations we have now. Earlier this year, a couple months ago, I guess it was, we had 9 leaders of the ASEAN, the Southeast Asian countries, and at the House. Was bipartisan. In fact, we invited some of the Senate to come, and some participated, to have a conversation, hear their presentations, and relate. Another symbol, the president had that ASEAN meeting in Washington, D.C., and we were very much a part of it. So again, we have global responsibilities, whether it comes to 3 things, I always say: security, economy, and governance. And this will be part of that. That's it. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
You told me last night there was going to be a comeback in the ball game. What happened? You said it ain't over till it's over. It's over. So your comment on the ball game.
The rain didn't interfere long enough.
You were losing, though. It was a regulation game. 4 innings in a 7-inning game is a regulation game. I was told one time.
Let me just say this one thing. Did you see the trophy? This trophy puts the Stanley Cup, dwarfs it. The Lombardi, you name any of them. This thing is gigantic. looks like you have won the World Series, the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, name something else, the World Cup. There it is. So congratulate the Republicans. It's a ball game. It's fun.
Thank you.
Hi, guys, it's Ally. Hey, it's me, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell me if I'm super shiny, Rudy, or if I can get away with it. Yeah, I hear you. Hi. Test, test, test. Can you hear me? Control room, I'm just gonna keep talking, make sure you can hear me.
Hey guys, can you guys interrupt Ally's eye?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Hey, y'all, talk to me if you can. Yep, hi.
Are you still gonna try to come within this hour?
I can hear control room and I can hear Dom, but Dom isn't sure that he's hearing my mic.
Yes, I
Can
can
you
hear
give me a
you.
mic check?
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4, standing in the room after Pelosi. I'm just gonna keep
Yes,
talking.
I can hear you.